Welcome to the Learning Reimagined podcast, where we discuss solutions to employee training and development challenges in the Caribbean. We speak with Caribbean professionals who are experts at helping people in Caribbean organizations excel. And we want to help you, our Caribbean audience, level up your teams, your employees, so that your businesses can succeed. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Learning Reimagined podcast. I'm your host, Christine McLean-Lewis, and today I have with me Mrs. Gina Tomlinson Williams. So Mrs. Tomlinson Williams, in her role at JPS as Director of Business Transformation, Organizational Development and Change, has the task of leading the strategic transformation and retooling of JPS's entire operations and its most valuable resource, its employees. Her portfolio spans organization-wide operational improvements and what McKinsey & Co. terms the health of the organization, how its people perform and are engaged. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And that's an amazing accomplishment for you, for you through the work that you have done to have been able to have such a positive impact on the business.
Yes.
And today, what we're discussing is customer service training.
Yes.
In the Caribbean, we know that a lot of the companies have an issue with customer service training.
Yes.
And
yes.
is it a challenge?
It is.
Yeah. So we're going to be speaking about not only how to do customer service training, but how to make it effective and actually help organizations to get their customer service teams ready and rearing to go to have the best outcome for customers.
Absolutely.
All right. So my first question, what are the greatest challenges that HR leaders and customer service managers have with customer service training?
Well, there are several. A couple of the key ones have to do with who you're training, how long they've been in the organization, the mindset changes that you have to deal with, and the organization itself. So I'll start from the people part of things. The first is in many companies, the customer service teams tend to have a high turnover rate.
Oh, wow.
And so you end up having to do customer service training often. And many times you don't get to instill that DNA over an extended period of time, especially if it is frontline or call center type of employees. That turnover rate tends to be high. If you have employees who have been there for a while and you are introducing customer service training, then it's a mindset change that needs to happen. It's not just about being able to smile and say hello nicely, but there is a whole mindset change. You have to, even if you may not like people, you have to seem as if you like people if you're going to be doing good customer service. One of the other challenges I have found is that customer service training tends to focus only on the persons on the front line.
Oh, okay.
And many organizations have other employees who do interact with customers.
Right.
And that is also a touch point. That's a moment of truth for your customers, where they're going to determine their perception of you.
Right.
So you could be running all these fabulous customer service training sessions with your frontline teams, and they're smiling and they're happy and they're engaging, but you have service technicians, you have engineers, other types of persons who are in the field touching your customers every day, accountants, etc., who deal with other entities. And if they don't receive training on how to deal with customers, then that is going to affect your customer perception. So it cannot be only limited to those persons who are on the front line. You have to be looking beyond that as well. For me, a pet peeve around customer service training is that it doesn't address the root cause. So for years, you may have a company that is seeing low customer service survey responses. The ratings are low. The media commentary is negative. And the only thing that they're doing is addressing the call center staff. But that's not why people are complaining. For the most part, if you look at the reasons why people are complaining, it's about the actual service itself, the product or the service that you offer, not the people on the front line who are dealing with complaints or challenges. So if you do not address those issues, you're going to be wasting your time, to put it as bluntly as possible, because you have persons now on the front line who are frustrated. They're dealing with these customers every day, complaining about the same things. They have to be giving the same excuses, the same reasons, the same stories, and nothing is changing on the back end. And so it is frustrating your staff. It is frustrating your customers. So you have to address the root causes. You have to be doing the analysis. I'm a big proponent of using data to change the way that you do business, to improve your processes. So you have to be looking at the data. If you have an IVR, then you need to be looking at the data from that. Why are people calling? You need to be doing surveys. Your agents need to be capturing why are your customers contacting you, so that you can know, identify what are the top 3 or 5 reasons why my customers are contacting. And I need to now address these and get them out of the way. Right? Because it's not just about answering nicely and resolving that issue. What about preventing it from happening in the first place? Right? So for me, that's like my number one pet peeve when it comes to customer service training. You can't do only the training for the frontline. You have to address the root causes.
And going to addressing the root causes, and you just mentioned being proactive about the training. How can a company structure a proactive customer service training program?
All right. So the first thing that we need to ensure is that there's alignment with the company's vision and mission.
Okay.
If the entire organization is not aligned around serving the customer, then once again, it's a waste of time, because everybody needs to line up. Your frontline staff, the immediate teams behind them that are resolving the immediate issues they're dealing with, and then the teams that are actually designing products, implementing solutions, creating services, etc. Everybody has to have a customer-focused mindset in order for that to be effective. And that's part of the training that needs to happen, where we reorient the organization around being customer-focused. And then everything I do on a day-to-day basis is geared towards pleasing my customer, ensuring that my customers stay. Customer retention is very important as part of that training as well. And so our vision, our mission, our values have to be aligned with what we're trying to achieve for the customer service training. And then there also has to be something that's called with him. What's in it for me, right? That has to be part of the training as well. So why am I doing this training? I'm not even in customer service. I'm not on the front line. Why are you wasting my time? I have books to go and update, etc. I have whatever it is I need to do.
Right.
So there has to be a component of it that says, okay, on my performance appraisal or my KPIs, there's something that myself, my team, my department is contributing to that improves customer service at the end of the day. And there's an incentive behind it for me. So there's something for me personally in it. Not everyone has the corporate citizen mindset where I'm part of a bigger picture. I'm here to do, whatever the greater good is. Not everybody has that mindset. So you can't rely on that, the goodness of people's hearts. If we could, they wouldn't need to do customer service training, right? So it has to go beyond that. And there has to be something, because we know that everybody's motivated differently. You have to have something in it that is motivating persons to want to do better, to want to serve the customer. So you have to ensure there's the performance appraisals that are linked to it. There are measurable goals that are associated with it. So we're going to be doing customer surveys. One of the things that I did wearing a previous hat at JPS, where I was head of customer service, was we linked internal customer service to our customer service training, and we actually measured it. And gave out awards. So how are we serving each other within the organization? Because that helped to also with the mindset change around service, so that everybody could see that service is not just about the person on the outside. It's not because I'm not front facing that doesn't mean that service is not important to me. So we used that tagline that said service is personal. And that went through the entire organization. We did internal service training, and then we measured every department. We would do a survey. How is purchasing serving you? How is account serving you? How are the finance teams, etc. Picking on finance, because they never seem to think that they're responsible for customer service, right? How are the technicians serving you, etc. So everybody got a score, and we would rank you. So every quarter there was a ranking, and you'd get a little prize. And so it built the awareness about the need to serve our customers better, because through me serving the next person in the chain better, eventually it reaches the customer and touches the customer, so that we see the value chain that leads to the customer. So there has to be that holistic view. And I would also add that we need to be focusing on being collaborative in hearing what our employees are thinking, because for the most part, the solutions are there. You don't have to go hiring somebody on the outside to figure out how to solve your problems. Your employees, for the most part, know what the problems are and know how to solve them. So if you're trying to resolve customer service issues, include your employees in that conversation. And you'll find that by being collaborative, they have a part to play. They say, that was my idea, or I had a word in that phrase that's now going out to customers, so it's mine. And so I own it. So being collaborative and inclusive of your employees will help with that process as well.
How do you suggest that people be collaborative though, especially in workplaces where that's not encouraged?
Well, that has to start at the top. It has to be something that leadership buys into. But I have also always been a proponent of the underground guerrilla warfare. Things can change from the bottom. It doesn't always have to change at the top.
Okay.
So to be collaborative, there are a couple of different ways you can do it. But one of the main ways is just ask, what's your idea? Ask for feedback. Most persons, unfortunately, across many organizations, go through their entire work life and no one has ever asked their opinion.
True. Very true.
And that changes how you feel about the organization. It changes how you think the company values you and perceives you.
Right.
If my opinion is valued, I am valued. Right? So we can change, little things like that can change engagement, can change loyalty. So it's, getting persons' feedback, asking for people's opinions and including them on initiatives. So not many times as well in organizations, the same 5 people do everything. The big projects that are out there, the initiatives, the front facing, the media, it's the same 5 people that are doing everything. Include other persons. Get other persons involved, not because they're not a subject matter expert doesn't mean that they don't have a voice or a valid opinion. So it's important to include all across the organizations, the persons who have been there forever, the persons who have just started, in between, so you can get the different perspectives and people have a voice at the end of the day.
Makes sense. How can customer service training be highly effective? I know you mentioned some things a while ago in your responses, but pinpointing the effectiveness of customer service training.
So when we talk about effectiveness, you're looking at what is the actual outcome. You want to see a measurable difference or an improvement. So a couple of the things, after we've done those things like involvement, collaboration, inclusiveness, you want to ensure that the service training is targeted to what is it you want your customers to believe about you? What's your promise to your customers? It's all part of your brand house. So the assumption is that an organization has developed a brand house and there are these different elements of the brand house, one of which is the promise to the customer and what is it, how you want them to perceive you, that brand that you want out there, because the brand is not the name. The brand is how people perceive you.
Exactly.
How they receive you, how they feel you, right? So how do you want that to be received by your customers? That now needs to be part of the customer service training, which is not just about how you answer the phone, the basics of, you have the rudimentary, fundamental things of customer service training. But then on top of that, you have things like language, because different brands use a different language. There are certain words you want to be using. So for example, at JPS, we speak about being a modern energy company. So we don't talk about being a utility anymore because we want to change the mindset, change the language, right? So those are the kind of things, for example, you must interweave your values into the conversation as well. So if accountability is one of your values, if respect is one of your values, then you want to be ensuring that those are the words that you're using, the language, and the way you treat your customers in that training must be aligned with those values. So if we say that our values are that we're accountable, then what does that look like when I'm serving my customers? It means that I'm going to call you back. If I said I was going to call you back, I'm going to call you back. If I commit, so it's following through on your commitments as part of that accountability. If I say that respect is part of our core values as an organization, what does that look like? It means I'm going to listen differently. There's a type of active listening that comes in that aligns with your values. So the core, the fundamentals of customer service training can be aligned with your values so that it becomes more effective, because your values are things that you should be talking about regularly throughout the organization. So they're hearing about the values, they're seeing it in the training, and there should be an expectation. Now, very, very important to ensure that something is effective. We know the old saying that says what gets measured gets done. So we want to ensure that we have measures in place to track how well you're doing before the service training and after the service training. So it's always very important to do your surveys before you start the training and try to get it drilling down as much as possible. If you have multiple locations, you want to drill down by location. You're reporting on the surveys because you need each location to know how well they're doing. What do I need to work on? And what you're surveying your customers on must link to what you're training, right? It doesn't make sense that you're surveying on accountability and you're only training on respect, right? So you have to be, whatever the things are you want to achieve in the customer service training, that's what you're surveying on. And those are the points that you're going to be looking at. One of the things that we have done as well is in the customer service surveys, it is shared with the employees. It's not just the top management that knows about it. The survey results are shared with the organization, with the employees. And it is a competitive activity. Make it competitive because now I want to do better. There's a pride that is built into it as well. So we talk about things like how long is a customer waiting to see an agent. So you measure that, right? You have somebody in the office either timing it, or you ask the customers, how long were you here waiting? That's a little bit more subjective because a 5-minute wait can feel like 5 hours, right? But you want somebody in there who is measuring, the time that it takes. So you might want to have a ticketing system. So, customer service training can actually lead to improvements in your processes when you're putting the measurements in place, because you're saying, how am I going to measure this? Oh, we might need to put a ticketing system in place, and then that can help to improve the process itself. So you want to be measuring the things that you're training on, and then you do your pre and your post, and then in the post surveys now, you share that and you say, okay, these are the areas that have improved. Kudos, incentives, recognition. These are the areas we need to work on. Do we need to do retraining? Do we need to shift people around? We see a particular location is doing better than another. What are you doing? We're going to learn from that and we're going to apply it somewhere else. So it has to be a dynamic activity in order for it to be truly effective.
So Gina, one of the things that you mentioned or I heard you implying is that customer service training should be based on like individual things. So for example, if you're targeting respect, your customer service training should focus on respect at that point in time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if that is where the challenge is. So it's a series of things that lead to you doing the customer service training. So there's a need that has been recognized, which is why you're doing the customer service training. What is that need? That need needs to be something specific so that you can address it appropriately with the training. So it's not just that customer service is bad and we need to improve it. What about it is bad? Okay, so we need to be doing the surveys. Once again, I'm always going to come back to the surveys because you don't know unless you ask.
Right.
That's how you know. If customers don't tell you, it's not just the cussing. What you're cussing about specifically, you're not just cussing. There's a thing that you're cussing about.
Right.
So this thing that you're quarreling about, we're going to drill into it and we'll look at the components of it. Is it the service? Is it the product? What is it that you're quarreling about? And then we're going to address those. And one component of it is the customer service. Okay, what aspect of the customer service? Did it take too long for you to get through? What medium were you using? Would you prefer something and we don't have it? So you want to be able to send a text message, and we don't offer that now. And we find that more and more customers, not just one, more and more customers are asking for this medium. We're going to address it by looking at the cost and everything to put something like that in place. If it is the actual service delivery, the agent was rude, or the agent was not knowledgeable, or the agent took too long to respond, then we need to now address that with training. Right? And then we align that training. Now the agent was rude, but one of our values is respect. So we're going to align on the respect value. They took too long, or they didn't call me back. That's going to be a consistent complaint that's coming in. People not calling back, they're not following up. Okay, so accountability. Remember, our value accountability, we're lining that up with the challenges that our customers are having. So it brings it home and makes it relevant for the agent who is getting the training, or the frontline team who is getting the training. And it doesn't have to be the values of the company. It could be that you define, once again, that promise that I spoke about. What is the promise that you've made to your customers? We will be on time every time. For example, let's say that's your brand promise. And it takes forever for people to answer the phone when they're calling you. When you go into the office, it's hard to get through to somebody. There's no manager who's all these different things that are affecting that promise that you have made to the customer. So there needs to be some alignment. It can't just be general customer service training just to improve the way that we smile and talk to you. And you hear me say that over and over again. It's not just about smiling and saying please and thank you. It's way more than that. Way more than that.
Yeah. Very good points, Gina. And a lot of Caribbean organizations especially don't pay attention to some of the things that you're saying, and that's why customer service continues to be a problem in the Caribbean. So my next question, Gina, what steps would you recommend an HR manager follow to plan a customer service training program? You've mentioned some stuff, but what would be a clear step-by-step process? Okay.
So the first thing that I would recommend is talk to a customer service professional.
Okay.
So we have the Jamaica Customer Service Association, and I know there are a couple of other Caribbean islands that have similar associations, but there are also several individuals and organizations out there that offer professional services around customer service. So I'd recommend that you speak to a professional. They will now guide you on how to target that customer service training. Many times they'll have an off-the-shelf product that they can offer you around customer service training, but if they're good, they're going to also ask you certain questions. Have you done surveys? Can we see those survey results? Because we want to make sure that the training is targeted towards the outcomes of those trainings. Once again, as I mentioned, link it to your vision and your values. So that's the kind of information you're going to share with whoever it is that's going to conduct the training for you. Unless you have someone in-house who is really good at customer service, and also you maybe have a training department, etc., that's fine. If you don't have those things in place, go to a professional and have them do it for you. Train all of your customer-facing staff, even those whose title doesn't say customer service. So if there's somebody who is in the field driving the van to deliver the product to the customer, they need training in customer service. Your security guards at your locations who are interacting with customers need customer service training. Anybody that represents your company that is going to be touching a customer at any point in time has influence over that moment of truth. And the moment of truth is that interaction point that allows a customer to decide how they perceive you.
Right.
So anybody who is touching a customer can change that, positive or negative. So you want to ensure they're all being trained. And then you want to, as I indicated, address the back end issues. So while you're doing your customer service front end training, you want to ensure that you're looking at the root causes. So you're doing your top 3 or your top 5 of the reasons why customers are complaining or contacting you, and then you're addressing those issues. As I said, you're going to be frustrating your frontline staff if you don't address the back end issues.
Agreed. And then is there a step also that would deal with collecting the data, as you were mentioning before, and then using that data to inform future training?
So once you reach out to that customer service professional, if you're not already doing surveys as a regular part of your activity, they're going to ask you to do one, or they're going to offer to do it for you. So that's going to be the first step to do those surveys.
Okay. All right. So this one is a bit of a long question. It came from an article that I was reading. It was written by Shep Hi, Ken. I hope I
Yes.
didn't butcher the person's name.
No, but it's a very well-known name in customer service, actually.
Oh, okay. There we go. And he wrote this article for Forbes. There was a quote in there that stood out to me. It said, the biggest mistake companies make in customer service training is that they only train the frontline, which we have spoken about. But what I want to get into is the specifics of strategies now that can be used to extend customer service training beyond the frontline.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that if as an organization you're serious about customer service, it needs to be one of your strategic priorities.
Okay.
So every organization should have a set of strategic goals, objectives, priorities, over whatever their planning period is, whether it's a 5-year period and then it's broken down annually, etc. If you're serious about customer service, one of those strategic objectives or goals must be customer focused. It is what is going to drill down through the organization to be able to make it a priority. So if we look at the big picture around strategy, every organization would start out with a set of strategic objectives, and then each of your different areas across the business would align with those strategic objectives. If you have a technical area, then they look at how they're contributing to that. Your frontline, how they're contributing, your finance, etc. How are we contributing to achieving these strategic objectives? And then each department or division would have a set of goals that are linked to those strategic objectives. And if you use customer service, and it wouldn't be as broad as that, you want to be targeted in what are you trying to achieve. So for example, offering more options for our customers to reach us easily, whatever it is you want to, however it is you want to phrase it. As a strategic objective of the organization, we're going to open up channels so our customers can reach us more easily. Then how is IT supporting that? IT should have some goals around opening up channels. That means that IT needs to be exploring more around the IVR. Can we create specific customer channels for our high-end customers in the IVR so that they press a button and they get special service? That's what we're talking about with an IT now aligning with customer service. We're talking about finance. So finance knows that they need to adjust the budget so IT can do what they need to do.
Right.
So they can finance the customer service training, right? Products and services being defined. We're going to open up more channels. More channels means what? What kind of products can I put on these channels? What services can we offer through these channels? So everybody across the business now has a goal that is oriented with this customer service strategy, not just the team called customer service. So it's very, very important for us to have, as an organization, a strategic priority that is linked to the customer. That way, what gets measured gets done.
Definitely. And I know that you would have mentioned bits and pieces of this in some of your other responses, but a big thing for me with the whole training is being able to not only do the training, but also measure how it's working, right? It's actually working and helping customer service improve. So what tips would you give the audience for tracking the return on investment in customer service training?
Sure. So one of the things that has proven difficult for a lot of organizations is attaching money to customer service. Like, our customers are happy, so how does that translate to money? It should be obvious, right? If, like, on the back of an envelope, you can just say, okay, happy customers want to spend more with you. But then the finance people are like, yeah, what does that mean? Give me a dollar value. So we can give a dollar value to that by looking at customer perception, negative, positive, and there are ways to measure customer perception. You can also measure your net promoter score, which is how many customers out there or what percentage of our customers would actually recommend you, your product or your service to somebody else. So you have different factors and tools that you can use to measure what your customers think of you. And then those can now relate to a dollar value. You can also look at, and let me relate that to a dollar value for you. So for example, high customer perceptions and high net promoter scores means that you should see more of your products and services being sold as a result of that. If it is that your net promoter score is low or going down, then you are seeing a corresponding reduction in sales of the product, right? Another way that you can measure the return on investment is around customer complaints, which has to do as you know, with customer service as well. How do they deal with customer complaints? So you're measuring, for example, the cost of a customer complaint.
Right.
Not just the fact that the person is complaining. The cost of that complaint means that you have to have a phone line that is ready to answer that call. You have to have an email service. You have to have a website. You have to have web chat. You have to have Instagram. All these things that you have to have cost you to be able to deal with customer complaints. The more complaints you have, the more people you have to have behind that, the more technology you have to have behind that,
support.
and therefore the higher the cost to serve the customers because you have more complaints. And so the converse applies. As your complaints go down, it should cost you less to serve your customers. So there is a direct dollar value relationship between the improvement in customer service, which is now the training that helps to improve the customer service, the improvement in your products and services and the delivery, and therefore your return on investment.
So customer onboarding is often one of the biggest challenges with the customer experience. What tips would you give to help small businesses across the Caribbean improve their customer onboarding so that the customer service overall improves?
Okay. So let's break down customer onboarding, all right? It's very similar to employee onboarding. If you think about it, there is an orientation, there is an introduction to what do we do, what we're about, and there's something that needs to be done to make you want to stay. Okay, so it's the same sort of thing now with customer onboarding. What is the first impression that your customer has of you, your brand, your organization, the products and services that you offer? That first impression is a big part of onboarding. So there needs to be an alignment of your brand across all these different channels. Every way that your customer could hear about you or interact with you for the first time, there needs to be alignment of the brand around that. So it should not be that if you have multiple locations, your customer gets a different type of service at each location, which we know is a big issue for a lot of companies. Where you go to one office and you know you can call on Jennifer because every time you go there, you all know her by name, right? Because Jennifer always sort it out and everything good. But when you go to this other location, you happen to be on vacation and there's an issue and you go into this other location, you don't know anybody there and it's like you cannot get anything done, right? That should never be the case. That's also part of the onboarding activity where a customer has a different experience or they hear about different experiences at different locations. So the consistency is very important, which is where the training comes in. So if you have that training for everybody across the board, then they're going to develop that level of consistency. And if you're measuring on the same metrics across the board, you're going to help to ensure that consistency. So that first impression of your company is very important, of your products and your services. So for me, that would be the key for the onboarding of your customer. And then how do I feel now that I am a customer? A friend of mine related the other day her experience. There's a spa that she goes to, not very often because they're very expensive, right? But every now and then she goes to the spa, but she has gone often enough that when she first went there, she was hooked because everybody determined they were going to know her by name. Right? Okay. So everywhere she went, they called her by name across that small, medium-sized spa. But every section she went to, they called her by name and they knew what her preferences were because they asked her up front, what would you prefer when we're doing your hair, when we're doing your nails, when you do whatever. And eventually, she got a personalized towel. Yes, my dear. And fancy. It is there for her. Whoa. She doesn't have to walk with it. So whenever she makes an appointment, they're ready for her, right? Because they know what she wants. And it's easy with a small business. Obviously, it's a little more difficult with a large business, but it's still possible. You can get your customers' preferences by asking them. Ask your customers upfront after their first interaction with you. What was it like? What did you like about it? What could we do differently? How can we improve it? So doing those initial surveys are important to understand, get the feedback and fix it. That is so critical. Don't get the feedback and then it just goes and sits on somebody's desk. You have to address what people are talking about. Especially when you hear more and more persons complaining about the same issues, you need to be addressing them so that the next set of customers that come on, or even those existing ones, they see it change. Those new customers don't experience that negativity. So you have retention and you build loyalty.
All right. So Gina, one of the things you mentioned a while ago was preferences, right? So when we get all of this information about the preferences of each customer, and as you mentioned, with a larger organization, it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
How do we manage all of that without the customer service team or those customer facing employees becoming overwhelmed?
Yeah. So it's a very good question. The best example I can use is the JPS app. Best app ever.
It's a good app.
Just plug in, right? So we've gotten so much feedback about the mobile app, and there's so many things that people want, and I want to see this, and this is great. And we have a feedback portion of the app that you can actually put in your ideas and suggestions and everything to say, this is what I want, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. At one point, our IT guys were like, stop, it's too much. It's just so many things. But then we also have to balance that now, because you have to look at how does the quality deteriorate when you start to add too many options, right? You have to look at what is the quality of the product and the service you're offering to your customers. So you have to balance that with the needs of your customers. Also, if it's 3 people that are asking for it, you're not going to change. If you have 500,000 customers, you're not going to change it for 3 people. But if you have enough persons who are asking for this thing, maybe it's not the mobile app that you put it in, maybe it's on the website or a different way of delivering the same thing that the persons are asking for. But it's important to balance quality with the feedback that you're getting from your customers. And just like with personal feedback, you take some, you leave some. Right? Not everything is good for consumption. But so at the same time, if enough persons are saying it, then there's a need to look at it and to see. But that balance is very important, because you want to maintain that quality and that standard.
Definitely. All right. So we're actually almost at the end, Gina. One of the things that I like to ask at the very end is what your top tips would be for customer service training in this case. So what are your top 3 tips for customer service training?
Top 3 tips for customer service training. First tip, align it with your company's strategy. So you want to ensure that it's something that everybody in the organization sees as important and is aligned with that. This is the direction that we're going in, and yes, we are or are going to become a customer focused organization. So that's the first tip, align it with strategy. The second tip is expand it beyond the frontline. The customer service training needs to be accompanied with, so let me take it from 2 perspectives. Expand it beyond the front line. The first perspective is train beyond the front line. It has to be persons who are touching your customers that are not necessarily called customer service agents. So that's the first aspect of expand beyond the front line. The second aspect is, yes, you're going to train on the front line, but you need to address the root cause issues. So that would be the second tip. And then my third tip would be ensure that you incorporate some level of a collaborative experience for your customer service personnel, where they're involved in the process of whether it is you want to involve them in the design of the training or in the getting the customer feedback, but involve your staff in the process and you'll get greater buy-in. So those would be my top 3 tips.
Those would be your top 3 tips. Awesome. And one of the things that I want to tie in, because One-on-One is a course creation company and we have an online platform and all that and all of that. How does online training support the customer service training process?
Okay, so there are many options when it comes to the online training for customer service. I would recommend a hybrid approach where there is a self-paced component of it, but there also has to be an interactive component of it because customer service is interactive. So there needs to be an opportunity for persons to role play, for persons to be able to ask questions, to be given examples, scenarios. Scenario training is very important in customer service training because you have to be able to deal with different types of situations as they come up. So my recommendation for online training would be a hybrid approach of self-paced and interactive.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And Gina, to close out, is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel should have been added to the conversation? Anything that you feel has been left out?
No, I think we covered it. The customer-centric organization for me is at the heart of it, where it cannot be that customer service is relegated to the department called customer service. I'll always preach that the entire organization needs to be behind it, and it has to start at the top. If the leadership of the organization is not behind it, then it's not going to be effective. You have to have leadership that buys in to the importance of customer service, so much so that it is a strategic priority for the organization.
Yeah. Gina, thank you so much for being here. You gave a lot of great insights. I hope the audience was listening too. And if people want to I don't know if you do customer service training okay. So if people want to reach you for customer service training, how can they reach you?
Sure. You can reach out to me by my email, gktomlinson@yahoo.com. Also on LinkedIn. I respond. I try to do it. Try to be responsive on LinkedIn. It's not so easy, but I try. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Same Gina Tomlinson Williams. So either one of those two is fine.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah.